Different World Pharmacy, Vol. 4 Chapter 16. The Path to Immortality. Thelma and Ellen silently breathed while listening to Hugo's story. I was skeptical about the existence of the Philosopher's Stone at first, which had been handed down among alchemists as a legend. But I changed my thinking when I saw the crystal stone at the bottom of that underground lake. Hugo heard from the prior landowner in the imperial capital, which acknowledged the curse upon the land had rapidly corroded building materials, and Hugo purchased the land in curiosity. Hugo discovered something beneath the ground, so he ordered an excavation and stumbled upon a lake of sulfuric acid, then unearthed a layer of crystallized stones and various crystals during that time. That alone is a huge discovery. Hugo's deed was considered a poor choice, but the merit in itself could be evaluated as an achievement. There was a special crystal stone that contained the memory of the dead, which attained a criterion in the known stage before the formation of the Philosopher's Stone. If the crystal stone is crushed and burned while using a divine flame, then allows a living thing to breathe it in, the memory of the dead inhabits the living as a result, like the one you saw. I see, it's not often to come across such thing. It was a coincidence that I discovered it. But it must have been discovered in the past, and the discovery was handed down among alchemists. Thelma saw what Hugo called a homunculus. A small monkey's consciousness appeared to have switched place with a person. The woman who fell into the underground lake and died was also a living dead. How did you manage to make the living dead? While trembling in horror, Ellen asked. I didn't make it, but allow it to be formed through the crystal. So that's it. Using people at brain-dead or vegetative state. Thelma's investigative guess was spot on. Brain-dead? That is what you called it. Hugo didn't know the terminology of a brain-dead person, but admitted his actions through his explanation, as he was using those who were in a coma state from unknown causes. As a royal court apothecary, it was quite easy for Hugo to obtain information about comatose patients within the Imperial City's intelligence network. Hugo reassured the patient's family that there was no hope of recovery and salvaged the bodies. So the dead becomes immortal through the usages of preserving the memory with the crystal stone. Hugo exclaimed euphorically. Even so, that woman died in an underground lake. Ellen stopped the discussion and pointed out the issue. This includes that time as well. If you died with the memory intact, you are immortal. Opening parenthesis. The dead will not truly die. So that's similar to my condition. Thelma's full recovery of his consciousness in the boy's suspended state through the process of combining the memory of the dead plus a body's apparent death status. The suspended death state is not resulting from physically dying due to physical attacks and drug poisoning. It's not too far from the truth in Thelma's case. With that in mind, what Hugo is stating is not incorrect in some parts. There is something that you do know about. Hugo glares at Thelma as he talks. He suspects that Thelma may be a living dead since the physical attack did not work against him. Thelma is nothing of a sort, Ellen denied indignantly, despite the fact that the other party is a knowledgeable noble. The memory of the dead sealed in crystal stones cannot be too long, since the limit is 3 days. The memory of that woman should have disappeared. When the memory of the dead exits from the body after a few days, the body returns to its original comatose state. Hugo had discovered the facts after a great deal of trials and errors. Therefore, there is no dignity in this person's title. It was an inhumane experiment. There is an ancient document among alchemists that a large number of crystal stones can make a Philosopher's Stone. In that case, to synthesize the Philosopher's Stone, the requirement is to seal the memories of the dead in the Philosopher's Stone and let the stone dwells in a living corpse. Hugo became overly excited, then he slams his fists onto the desk. Immortality is indeed possible. Thelma listens to his bantering while thinking that this is a case from a classic story. It always is the last thing that a powerful person who has gained wealth and fame pursues. Yes, it can be possible, Hugo muttered to himself bitterly. I see, he couldn't find a way to turn the crystal stones into the Philosopher's Stone. Thelma could only guess. As I have told you before, I will keep my promise. Close your eyes. As Falma approaches Hugo, and Hugo scatters backward. What are you going to do? As I said earlier, I'll just open the divine vein. Falma closes his eyes and only shows to Hugo only the medicine god's staff to prevent further worsening Hugo's trauma. Thrusts the medicinal god's staff into Hugo's chest, and quickly opens the divine vein without chanting. T.N. Sorry, but LMAO. Not worsening his pre-PTSD with a thrust while having his eyes closed. The author probably meant Hugo had his eyes closed. However, the divine vein that reopened was minor as a penalty for his crime, and Falma does not give Hugo the opportunity to use strong divine power in the future. Falma feels sorry that this kind of aristocrats hasn't been banished yet. If one does not have divine power, one is not recognized as an aristocrat. Hugo closes his eyes but does not feel the staff punctures through his body. It's done. Your power is not the same as before, but it's fine for the time being. Hugo feels alive once again as his divine power gradually recovers, even though it is a small amount. He sighs loudly and sprawls on the ground without saying a word. He appears like a person that is drained of spiritual power down to his very core. Ellen moves closer to Falma's side while unable to say anything, while the golden-year aristocrat completely succumbs to his indignity. Falma is quite scary at times. Ellen nods repeatedly and convincing herself that Falma can never be handed over to the enemy. Hugo's confession seems to be over. However, Falma pursues further. Do you have something else to talk about? What are you talking about? You're attempting at something in the basement of this castle. Apparently, you're probably asking someone for help in this matter. Hugo's shoulders quiver. Is that right? Falma folds his arms. Falma pretends to signify that there is a terrifying thing slumbering deep beneath the castle. He senses a feeling similar to an accumulation of evil spirits, but it causes him to have the sensation of a physiological disgust. This is the sensation that Falma has noticed since he set foot in Hugo's castle. Is this the result of an experiment trying to make the Philosopher's Stone? Can you really control it? Wait, that is, don't touch it. The door should never be opened, as I sealed it to the point where it will never be opened again. Hugo declares in a confusing manner and begins to be indignant. I believe whatever you've sealed inside is not properly sealed because there are so many signs of it leaking out. It feels demonic. No, more like signs of a pure evil presence. Falma sternly points out that by simply putting a lid on a stinking problem, it's merely delaying and resolving the real problem at hand. So, what are you doing in this castle? Ellen stiffens her shoulders and indulges with an image of horror. Well, what are you doing in this castle? Ellen stiffened her shoulders and appeared horrified. It looks like it can't be helped. Hugo starts to explain that it started on a certain day. A certain reaction occurred in the container that stored the extracted memories from the innumerable crystal stones, and it became uncontrollable since that time. It manifested into something which got completely out of control. Hugo indicated the mass of memories fused together into an irregularity, and it went beyond his control because his divine vein was sealed by Falma. If you can't get rid of it, I'll take care of it. Wait here. Wait. Don't destroy that container, since the accumulative of synthetic spirits are from living humans. Isn't it just a demon? It cannot be left alone. Wait, Falma-kun. It's dangerous. Falma leaves Ellen and Hugo on the spot after his declaration and uses his flying power to head directly underground at once. While relying on his senses to detect the whereabouts of the evil presence, he rushes forward and lands in front of a large iron door at a dead end. The door has a sturdy structure that seems to have pressurized resistance in case of an explosion coming from inside. Falma uses his diagnostic eye to see through the other side of the door. This should be the right choice. Sanctuary Epidemic Sanctuary 1. Falma takes hold of his medicine god staff, and casts Epidemic Sanctuary through the door. The evil presence contracts slightly in response to Falma's Epidemic Sanctuary. Within that small gap of time, Falma bursts into the room with all his might, literally through the sturdy iron door, slips through the triple doors, and infiltrates into the innermost room, too. Ellen, Hugo, and the servants give chase after Falma, but no human can slip through the door and enter the room like him. The voice of Ellen calls out Falma's name, which can be heard through the door. No matter what's happening beyond this point, Falma isn't scared. Moreover, the thought of such a vile thing from inside escapes to the outside is his primary concern. This underground laboratory was renovated by Hugo from the underground cave he mentioned earlier, and it is filled with various magical and alchemic experimental tools. It's completely different from the tools that Hugo usually used in the royal court. The strong and evil presence is also filled with a pungent odor of chemicals. Hugo exhibited a pretend face as a court apothecary, but his hidden face as an alchemist which toyed with life and death, and being fascinated by the study of darkness. In the center of the laboratory, there are bottles filled with crystal stones of various sizes and heavy metals that continued to react, and so much more. The most striking vision among the scene is a terrifyingly sized tubular crystal transparent container that is connected to the end of a giant distiller. There is an amorphous red-black liquid filled inside which appears to be moving like a newly created creature. It makes a horrifying constant sound that mimics the condensed noises of grudges, and it generates a spiraling malicious intent. This is the cause from the evil presence. The thick glass is densely engraved with the divine figures, and even Falma can begin to unravel the clues to what he's seeing before him through the eyes of an amateur. If anyone takes this outside, it will be the worst-case scenario. This can be compared to the evil spirit of Camus who scattered the Black Plague disease. But he perceives this evil presence to be much greater than that. Falma instinctively senses that it will be dangerous to leave this alone for just one more day. I'll wipe it out. Falma pushes as much of his divine power into the medicine god's staff as he can. He increases his concentration to his utmost limit, clenches his teeth, pierces the staff through the container without damaging it, and destroys the fluid in an instant. The fluid emits an unpleasant scream that resembles a human voice, then turns into black vapor and evaporates in an instant. The decomposed black mist converts into a transparent liquid and is pulled into the crystal stone on the medicine god's staff. Damn it! The evil presence was transferred into the staff. He becomes anxious as he waves the staff around while observing it. However, the staff exhibits nothing unusual from the usual sign of the medicine god's staff. Moreover, the number of crystal stones on the staff has increased by 1 to 6 now. Falma lets out an ungodly noise. Will the memory contained within the crystal stone returns again later? There is no sign of an evil presence. Falma responds to Ellen, as her voice resembles screaming, by erasing the iron door from the inside using erase substance. Standing outside, Ellen, Hugo and the others are looking dazed in confusion. Falma-kun. You went in alone, you're too carefree. Ellen lunges at Falma. You are insane. What was inside? After seeing Falma comes out intact, Hugo is worried about the memory of the dead he was experimenting with that could have transferred into Falma. I erased the evil from this area. Falma renewed the inside of the laboratory in entirety. Hugo is stunned and completely self-defeated in believing that nothing could be done by the hands of humans. It disappeared. Falma points his finger at Hugo and follows up with a sharp tone when he sees Hugo's relieved expression for a moment. Now then, Count Tramwall. Promise that you will never experiment with the crystal stones again. This happened because you tampered with a living being and the memories of the dead. Hugo has a chance of recovery from this illness and he simply just nods powerlessly. I'm sorry. I wasn't able to take care of it. Thank you. Although the Philosopher's Stone went through an unorthodox process, Hugo thought that he could have requested an alchemist who knew the mystery of crystal stones for help in order to manage that evil presence. From now on, you should concentrate on pharmacology and not alchemy, instead of being obsessed with immortality. Wouldn't it more wise to return to his original intentions and reconsider human life and death through pharmacology? Falma tells the drooling Hugo of the possible renewed purpose. If you're planning on it, I will always cooperate with you. You will a pharmacist on an equal footing with me. Falma then leaves Hugo's castle behind with Ellen. On the way back to the imperial capital, the sun is still high in the sky. Ellen no longer screams while sitting on the medicine god's staff during the flight. The stars and the moon are closer today. Thank you for showing me this kind of scenery. She shyly mentions about it to Falma while burying her face onto Falma's back.